Welcome to Permission to Be Human, the podcast. I'm your host, Mel Finlater, mother, coach, and curator of Permission to Be Human, the company and community. If you're a mom, know a mom, or want to be a mom, and you crave getting out in the world to make a difference, then you're in the right place. This is a space for moms like you to connect with yourself, your purpose, and your big, audacious dreams. Because when you feel your best, you can better you, your family, and the wider world. Let's do this. Happy birthday to us. It is 1 year since this podcast, Permission to Be Human, the podcast, has come into fruition. That's not even counting the trailer that happened a little while before. I'm so excited that, one, I've made it this far. Being consistent every single week, an episode has come out Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. PST. And you know what? I'm so excited that people are listening because I really believe in this message that mothering is what's going to change the world. And you moms and you people mothering with big, audacious dreams, we need to support you to be your best self, right? And to have those big dreams. So thank you so much for showing up and listening to this podcast. Whether you've listened since the beginning or this is your very first episode, I am so grateful and appreciative for you being here right now. We have some exciting stuff this week. Every single day, there'll be a podcast episode coming out at 7 a.m. PST. That's just a crazy amount of work, but it has been so worth it to bring this to you. At 10 a.m. PST each day, Sunday to Saturday from May 12th, we will be having a Facebook and Insta Live with really short episodes, but ones that are super tangible, where you have a tool to walk away with to help you get over overwhelm. Get over overwhelm. Because it's hard to dream big when you're still in survival mode. And let's face it, sometimes we're overwhelmed in this life that is mothering, right? So show up on those. And at the end of the week on Saturday, I am going to be giving away 2 pretty incredible prizes. I'm going to be giving 2 coaching packages for possibility coaching, where you get to work with me one-to-one and look into what your big audacious dream is and how you can get there. I will support you, I will cheer you on, and I am so excited to do just that. So 2 packages are coming your way for those people who do the following. You need to like the Facebook page, Permission to Be Human. And if you're on Instagram, you need to get on there and follow us on Instagram, Permission to Be Human Coaching. And finally, to really support this podcast, please go on Spotify and rate us and follow us. That will also make sure we get in your list, so it shows you when a new episode comes up. And if you're on Apple, then you can go in there and rate and write us a review. That really helps me and the podcast to be seen by more people, so thank you. And yeah, whoever does at least two of those things will be entered into a draw, and on Saturday I will find some magical online tool to pull it out of a hat and see who wins those 2 coaching packages. I'm going to add another one on, and I'm literally just thinking of it right now, which is I have a beautiful bookshelf behind me. If you're just listening to audio, you can't see it, but it is lovely and color-coded and gets commented on a lot. And I'm going to let you pick your favorite book off my bookshelf and send it to you in the mail. So that's pretty awesome. These books are full of like science-backed tool, positive psychology, inspiration, parenting, strength-based models. There's so much good stuff up there. So I'm going to send you a book that will be a 3rd prize. So hooray, hooray. It's 1 year. Enjoy the podcast for today, and we'll see you soon. Today we're speaking with Jewell Siebert, and she is a tapping or EFT practitioner. And we had a really fascinating conversation, not only about her life and how she got to the point of getting into that from a background of being in the United States Military Academy, but we also get to really tap into, haha, pun, tap into her knowledge about tapping and how it could help us as mothers go out and live those big, audacious dreams. This is how Jewell describes herself. Jewell Siebert is a best-selling author, coach, and EFT tapping practitioner. A graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, Jewell combines the lessons she learned over her 23-year career in the military with scientifically proven neurosomatic techniques. Her big audacious dream is to help kids be more confident, resilient, and kind so they grow into successful adults who make our world better. So stick around. Hi, Jewell.
Hello.
I was just saying to you, Jewell, that I'm so excited to have you here and hear your story, which sounds I'm very intrigued by, as well as, going into this world of tapping that I've heard of but don't know a ton about. So I feel like it'll be really informative, but also really useful for the audience here today. So thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love it's so nice. It was so nice to meet you the other day. And I love talking about tapping. So it's fun.
Win-win.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us about you. Who's Jewell?
Yeah. So these days I do coaching and tapping, EFT tapping with people. But I'm a reservist now, but I spent the first 14 years of my adult life as an active duty Army officer. Well, I went to West Point in New York, the military academy for 4 years, and then graduated and was an Army officer for 14 years. And then I decided to make a change and I got out. I got out when my daughter was born. It really shifted my priorities for me. Like literally that moment, because I had been debating whether to get out or stay in. And I just realized like what my focus wanted to be. And I wasn't 100% happy. You know, when you're doing something and you like, I say it's like when you make all the right decisions, but you realize they weren't the right ones for you. And so I didn't want to continue down that path anymore because I had someone to look up to me and someone to care for. And I didn't want to be away from her for extended periods of time, doing work that wasn't like in my heart. Like I love it, but it wasn't my one thing. And I didn't want to give up that for something that wasn't my one thing. I wasn't that happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It really hits home that phrase that you said that you were making all the right decisions, but were they the right ones for you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we can all identify with that at some point in our life that, there are these quote unquote right decisions that we follow this path. And, it sounds like to you, it got to this point where you're like, oh, was that for me
Yeah.
or for, right?
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to know though, because I think once you put so much time and effort into a career or, any project in your life, like choosing to pivot is messy. And I don't think it's an easy choice. At least it wasn't for me. It was not an easy choice
Yeah.
because you've given so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Time, energy, just like mental capacity into like figuring out
Yeah.
how to make that life work.
Yeah. I was lucky because I had the option, like when I left active duty, I joined the reserves. So
Mhm.
I still get to continue that. It's just not all day, every day. And it's in a way that's more compatible. or it was more compatible with what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. So you're a mom as well then. And how old's your daughter?
She's 9.
Ah,
Oh my gosh,
Seems
I can't believe
nine.
it.
Yeah. 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 And so like where did things go from there then?
Oh gosh, I was so lost.
Yep.
I was so lost. I struggled. I really did. So I didn't have a full-time job for a few years. Like I was living on savings, and I tried starting some side business blogging, which I was not great at all. But I've stumbled into well, I stumbled into this program. Are you familiar with the Chicken Soup for the Soul book
Yeah.
series?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So Jack Canfield, I saw he was doing I love his work, and he was doing a certification program. And it was like how to teach the success principles and how to how to set goals and achieve more. And I thought, well, if I learn about this stuff and I learn how to meditate and set goals and reach these goals, then I can teach it to my daughter. So I went to this program. I was like, she'll be so far ahead. And so I went to this program not thinking it would lead to anything professionally, and discovered that I love doing the work. And this is like my heart just felt like, oh, and it was it. And that's where I learned about tapping and started down that road. And that's where I just figured out what was in my heart to do. So it was a total fluke. It stayed a side business for a long time. And, I'm just now starting to dive into it to transition full time.
Yeah.
So I think the lesson in there for me was, we see a lot of stories how people are like, I did this in like 6 months and whatever. And it's not always like that. At least it wasn't for me. And that's fine. It can it can be messy and imperfect, and just work in a way that's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're so right in that. And what comes to my mind is this. You say it's a total fluke, but it wasn't. It was an intentional opening of your mind to other possibilities, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
learning. And I don't know if you've ever done your character strengths before, but I'm
No.
guessing one of yours is probably love of learning. And
Yes.
yeah, right? So I highly recommend. I just did an episode with someone else on the via character strengths they're calls, but love of learning is what I hear in what you're saying to me, is that you're like you opened your mind, opened your body, whatever, to this concept that something else could be out there for you, to growth, to learning whatever comes your way, and that led to this, to this, to this, to this, and to where you are now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really accurate.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's kind of beautifully imperfect, and that's what our journeys are. And I think it's so important to share stories like yours in the way you just described it, because you're right. Like if we base our assumptions on the stories we see on Facebook, especially for those out there like us who, you know, have dabbled in the online business world, right? We see like make 6 figures in 6 months, and
Yes.
and it makes us feel like that is the way that most people work. And actually it's not. Most people, it is one little step after another little step, and one decision of opening up our minds and bodies and spirits and whatever to the concept of something else, not knowing
Yeah.
what that is. And it's kind of scary.
Yeah,
And it is scary and terrifying at times and exciting and all the different feelings, but it gets us there.
it is.
Yeah.
What you just said about being scary reminded me, when I was leaving active duty, I was meeting some friends for lunch, and they weren't in the military, and they said, "Well, you've deployed, because I deployed 4 times, and they're like, you deployed 4 times. Like, wasn't going to war the scariest thing you experienced? And I'm
Mm.
like, the scariest thing I'm experiencing is leaving the military. Like, I am terrified because I don't know what to expect, And it's just the uncertainty of how we navigate our lives can bring up a ton of fear,
Yeah.
a ton.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. And you add a kid in the mix of that.
Yeah,
Right? It's
exactly.
talk about uncertainty and not knowing what to expect.
Oh my
Right?
goodness. I questioned myself every day if I was being selfish. I'm like, what's more selfish? Like having a stable income, or, you know, not being true to myself and being unhappy and being away? Like, what what is the most selfish? Because kids change everything.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's so cliche, right? But it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. And they open up our mind to, again, another possibility. And
Hmm.
and that can be really scary. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
The best things kind of are scary. It's like if you looked at the comfort zone, kind of stretch zone type image,
Yeah.
right? Kids put us in our stretch zone and sometimes into our red zone, which is the further like, ah, but also like, this transitions in our life, children being one, change of career being another. That's what stretches us,
Yeah,
helps us be who we are.
totally agree.
Yeah. Cool. So you know, you had this stable job that you liked, but maybe didn't love. You weren't sure, you're kind of, and then you decided to make this shift in your life, did a bunch of learning, had a kid,
Yeah.
found this passion of tapping and EFT, and I'm wondering, where are you at with that now? Like, what's the big dream at this point in your
Yeah.
life?
It's so ironic. And I don't know if ironic is the right word, but dang it, Alanis Morissette. But the right, the craziest thing about this is one of the first times I'm sharing the next part of the big dream in public. So I think that's why, oh,
Mm.
that's why it's getting a little stuck. I'm very excited about it and also a little scared and self-conscious. So that's where I am. But my big dream is to expand on where I'm bringing tapping. So I do tapping. I've been doing tapping for years with women entrepreneurs and helping them with limiting beliefs and self-love. It all comes down to self-love. Like, honestly, underneath everything is self-love. And now I'm expanding to bring it to children too.
Wow.
And I'm so excited about that. And I've been dreaming about this. Like, I made, I applied to this Bob Evans grant competition years ago with this idea, but I've always been sitting on it thinking, well, this someday when I'm better, I'll start working with kids. So I finally, someone helped me see that someday is now. Like, you know,
Mm.
I'm just scared. But I see my dream is to help them handle school stress, peer pressure, bullying, just anxiety. And especially with like all the violence in schools these days, like there was, I've been having all these little pop ups, like things just coming up, and I know we notice more what we're thinking of, but like all these little needs for kids. And, we don't learn these tools. I didn't learn these tools when I was a kid. And I think it can help them so much. Just if they can learn how to manage their big emotions and to be more confident in themselves as children, it can help them speak up for themselves more, not make all the crap decisions like I made in my life, like just have such, it's going to sound, I don't even care if it sounds crazy, but I really think that by helping them learn these skills and learn to love themselves in early age can make our world a better place.
Yeah.
Because the
then
more
tapping
people
paid off.
love, yeah, yeah. So, oh yeah, there's my goosebumps.
There you
That's my big
go.
dream. That's
It's
my big
released.
dream.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I am so excited about that big dream. As a mom with a variety of anxiety in the people in my life, I can testify for the fact that kids need this.
yeah,
Humans need this. We all need this, right? But it's so exciting to start at the kid age because then you're giving them a lifelong skill. You know,
yeah,
you're their brains are growing at such a fast rate that if we can build those neural pathways of regulation now and self-love, as you say now, like just imagine what
yeah.
amazing people are going to come out of it, right?
Right? Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And resilience takes on a whole nother phrase and way of looking at it when they've already kind of built that up from that young age.
hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's so exciting. So here's what I want to, so I can see you right now,
Yes.
and the people listening probably can't, though it may be up at some point on a video. But when you were talking about it getting stuck in you,
Uh-huh.
this idea, you did something with your hands. Can you describe what you did?
Absolutely. So I was tapping on the heel of my hand. And the heel of your hand is the part, like if you imagine somebody chopping a piece of wood with their hand, they call it the karate chop point. But if
Yeah.
you imagine like chopping a piece of wood with your hand, that side part, I was tapping on that. And
Mm,
that is where an acupressure point is located. And that's one of the tapping points. So
mm.
I was tapping on it, like, calm down.
So that's like one of the calm down type points then.
Yeah, yeah. EFT in general, the whole thing it does is turns off your body's fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. Most people are familiar with fight, flight. There's two other aspects to it too, but
Yeah.
we call it the fight, flight response. And it tells your nervous system, I'm safe. Whatever's triggering you doesn't have to trigger you. And then your body stops producing the stress hormones and starts, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and your body's like, oh, I'm safe, whatever. So that's how we physically calm down when tapping these points.
Yeah. Brilliant. And just like something physical to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting us out of that. Often, our heads are spinning in that time of fight and flight. Like our body is responding, full body, but where
Yeah.
we are at is in our head, just like thinking about the fact that our body is responding, right?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know? And I'm just thinking of how useful it could be in times where, so for example, I was just at the walk-in clinic, as I was sharing with you before, without sharing too much of my kid's story. We were there and I needed to share something. Once my numbers called, I needed to tell them why we were there. And it was something that was brought up because I feel quite vulnerable in that situation.
Mm.
I could feel all of the emotion coming up, right? And I'm like,
Yes.
this is not the appropriate time right now to burst into tears, right? And
Yes.
and I was able to, with minimal tears, just explain what I needed, sit back down. And then I needed in that moment some sort of technique to calm myself enough to then go into to wait and then go talk to a doctor about what we were going to talk about, right?
Yes.
And because yes, permission to be human, it's okay that I have those feelings, all those things. In that moment, they're not helping me. Like they are helping me, but I needed to get it across. I needed to not feel like a hysterical mom who was there for no reason.
Right.
So I can picture tapping. So for me, I actually did a little bit of grounding work. I just thought of my feet and where they were on the ground and,
Nice.
got into my body in that way. But it sounds like tapping is a really great alternative to use in a time like that,
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we get triggered with the stress response,
Hmm.
our limbic system is in charge, the limbic
Yeah.
system part of our brain. And the prefrontal cortex, like resources and blood are diverted from that. Like that's not in charge. So
Yeah.
if you are trying to communicate something, it's very hard.
Yeah.
So you can absolutely do tapping. And if I could share, like, you don't even have to do a full tapping sequence in that point. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of times, if I'm in a situation like that where I don't want to be like going through all the motions, I'll just like squeeze on one of those points.
Mm.
So you can do it very discreetly because a lot of the points, like what people don't even realize is we naturally touch these points whenever we're stressed. Like that's it's soothing to our body. So you could be tapping or touching these points, and applying pressure and breathing and just like soothing your body very discreetly.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is fantastic. So let's say, again, for those who couldn't see what you were just doing, because I saw
Oh, yeah,
you
sorry.
doing that
Yeah.
while you were doing it.
Yeah.
Let's say, that story that I just shared, I'm sitting there in the middle of a very small, very busy little waiting room full of
Yeah.
people, trying to, get back into my body, be able to use my thinking brain again.
Yeah.
What physically could I have done with my body to get myself back into that space that I needed to be in?
So you can either like tap on these points or just press on them. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just press on them. So I'll tell you where they are. The heel of the hand that we talked about, you could it's the top of your head. Like if you were to take your fingers and put them on your ears and trace a line to the top of your head, in your on your eyebrows, like on the inside above your nose, there's tapping points there. So you could like even rub on those outside on your temple. Like
Mhm.
it's like we do this all the time. Rub on the
Yep.
outside of our temple.
Yeah.
Like that's an acupressure point. Under the eye here, if you want to be, there's a point on the chin, like under the lip, but above the bump on your chin.
Hmm.
That's a point. You could just like, if you're sitting there, you could just like go like that, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you go to your collarbone and then a couple inches down and out, like those tender spots, you could
Hmm.
just, and it's very natural to be standing there and like tapping or touching these parts of your body. So
Yeah.
like you could, if you're like, most of the time, I don't mind if I'm like tapping in public because whatever, people are so focused on themselves, nobody pays attention really. But like there are
Yeah.
some times when I do not want to do this in front of everybody. So I'll just, naturally touch those points
Yeah.
and nobody knows.
Brilliant. Yeah. Even just like touching them just briefly that I just did, I'm like, oh, my body feels better right now.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And so, we're describing this in a way that is almost like an emergency first aid kit, right?
Mhm.
Like, I need to get this sorted right now. But I'm curious because I believe the answer is yes. If there's another way, like, how else do you use EFT? Explain it to us. Like, what's the science of it? Yes, we can
Yeah,
use it as this emergency first aid, but you mentioned working with women entrepreneurs on their self-love and limiting beliefs. That's not necessarily emergency, that's more preventative. So
right.
share a little bit more about like EFT and how it works. And yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing. It lets us rewire the neural pathways in our brain. So
Mm.
that means that we can take beliefs that we have about ourselves, like low confidence or even things like phobias or cravings or so many things. There's so many things. We could take those and change them. We can change our core beliefs about ourselves. And the way it works is that when we have experiences in our lives, especially like early in life, because before the age of 6, we aren't making that much like alpha and beta brain waves. Like we're in super learning mode. So we absorb a lot from our caregivers. And even throughout life, experiences we have, less than ideal experiences we have, get encoded in our brains. And our limbic system assigns emotions to it. So we will go through our day and say we're afraid of public speaking or we're afraid of, I don't know, having difficult conversations. Well, subconsciously we're getting triggered and our brain is like, oh, this is a threat. I need to react. I go into fight, flight, freeze response. Well, when we tap, we're telling our brain, we're tapping on these points, and it's like a mix of different, it's, somatic procedure. We're tapping on the acupuncture points. People are familiar with acupuncture, but we're tapping on the acupoints, and using cognitive behavioral theory and letting our bodies know that we can have these triggering experiences, these triggering inputs, but we are safe because this is tapping on these points. It's very soothing to our body. And there's a ton of scientific research. Like there are so many studies happening, and there's like hundreds of them showing, it's not just a placebo effect. What happens when we tap is that our brain, the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, and we stop making all these stress hormones. And so our body's like, oh, I'm safe. I'm having this stimulus, but I'm safe. And if you do it ahead of time, like not in the moment, but you do it ahead of time, and you can address what experiences in the past triggered you and what triggers you in the future, you can create new neural pathways so that when you experience these things in the future, you're not triggered with the same intensity. Or, it can take like multiple sessions, or it can take a session, it just depends. But, you can do it ahead of time so that your brain is already prepped to feel safe when you experience it in the future.
Mm.
It's so cool.
The look on your face right now. It's so cool.
I love it.
Yeah, it's like play, right? And I mean,
Yeah,
and if you look at it, it's it's like magic, is what you're describing
it
in
is.
a very
Yeah.
scientific way.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
our bodies are wonderful things, and they are designed, like the fact to me that our bodies were created to have these points,
Yeah.
right? They're created to say, no, like it's okay, you can help me calm down,
Yeah.
right? Because I find it's really easy to get frustrated with like, why is my body designed to think that there's a lion chasing me when all it is like I haven't gotten out the door on time, right? Or whatever it might be.
Yes.
But what you're giving us in me is another version of that story, which is, look, your body was designed to be able to think that the lion's chasing you and still calm down.
Yeah.
It just needs, we've got these methods that will help us
Mhm.
along the way.
Yeah,
And that's kind of magical.
it is. Did you know? Can I tell you one more thing? It's so cool. Our body, even the stress response in itself, is designed to help us soothe. Like when we go into stress, like we crave community, we crave. And so we will reach out to people and, get that oxytocin boost. Like there's self-soothing mechanisms built in our physiology. It's
Mm,
just, it's
yeah.
just amazing. It blows my mind.
It, yeah, agreed. There's so many just amazing things. Yeah. Oh, my mind is going to this. I was just listening to the recent We Can Do Hard Things episode,
Oh
the Glennon
yeah.
Doyle's podcast. If nobody's listened to that, I highly recommend it. It's like my favorite podcast. But and they were talking about internal family systems, I think it's called, and
Nice.
how we have different parts of ourselves, and we can talk to the different parts. And I'm just like combining that in my brain with what you're talking about, and just like how it's, if one of our parts is worry, for example,
Mhm.
like what's worry doing there? It's trying to keep us safe. It's trying to
Yep.
calm us. It's trying to, it's not there to be a pain in the ass,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's
It's
actually there to help us.
yes.
Yeah.
It's there because at some point we were hurt from something, either we were embarrassed or, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts work in tapping too. It's like really effective, especially for inner critic, because exactly what you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like I don't know. I almost think of it as like a little child then. My worry would be this little child
Hmm.
that's just like, please pay attention to me, right?
Yes.
It's like, how
Yes.
can you be mad at that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually so I'm doing a lot of my own like inner child work, and that is spot on. Like
Yeah.
that work has been the biggest game changer for me personally.
Yeah.
It's just what you said, like the scared little piece of you, the scared little part of you.
Yeah.
And that working with that version of me, that piece of me has, I've done a complete 180 on so many things. And I don't feel like I'm done. Like I feel like I'm still, I'm still doing the work, but every little bit just brings so many benefits. Just because a lot of times I think too, we're like ashamed of those parts of ourselves, or beat we beat up those parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And those parts of ourselves are the way they are because they've already been beaten up. Like
Yeah.
we don't need to keep hurting ourselves.
Yeah. And we
And
push them
I think,
away, right? Like we
yes,
push away.
yes.
The more worry comes, we're like, I want to just get it out. It just go away. But if that's a little
Mm-hmm.
kid, like us parents know that like the more we push
Yeah.
them away, the tighter they cling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because they're saying, no, I have a message for you. I need to tell you something. I don't feel safe or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Um,
Yeah.
so actually give them a little hug. Maybe
Absolutely.
tapping's a hug.
Yeah. I feel like that's a great analogy. It is. It is.
Oh, my mind's going weird. Yeah, awesome. I love it. Okay, so we know what a EFT is, and I'm really excited because you've agreed, Jewel, to the day that this is released, when people are listening to this, we're also going to be going live, and you're going to actually do some tapping with me and anybody who
Yes.
wants to like come in and listen and do it alongside, which is amazing. So I'm really excited to experience that and put another tool in my toolbox and, and through me, my children and whoever else I end up working with and those people listening. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so we always finish with one question, which is if you had one tip to give to the mothers who are listening who are so keen to get out there and make a difference in the world, have these big audacious dreams, or want to have these big audacious dreams and aren't sure, what they are yet, what tip would you give them?
So my tip would be practice self-forgiveness. And I realize that might seem kind of weird when we're talking about going after dreams, because what does forgiving myself have to do with anything? But my response would be everything, because we tend to be very hard on ourselves. We're much harder on ourselves than we are on anybody else. And that blocks us in a lot of ways. Because number one, it wastes a lot of time and energy. And when we are beating ourselves up and holding on to our mistakes, then we are not allowing ourselves to move forward. If we don't like ourselves or feel worthy of even self-compassion, we're not going to feel worthy for the things that we want to receive. And practicing self-forgiveness, it doesn't have to happen overnight. It's something that I work on a lot. Actually, I just made a tapping on it today because I was like, I am so stuck in this area. I was so mad at myself. But just remember, everyone does the best they can given the tools, knowledge, information, and skills they have at the time. If we could do better, we would have. But you're doing the best that you can. And so have some grace and compassion for yourself and find a way to forgive yourself, because the kinder you are to yourself, the kinder you'll be to everyone else, and the more you can give and receive.
It's beautiful. Thank you. I
Thank
love it.
you.
Okay, so if people are like, I'm intrigued. I want to find out more. I want to get in touch with you, Jewel. I have all these things that I need to tap. But where would they find you?
So I'm on all the socials as we do, right? So I have a website, jewellsiebert.com, or you can look up Tapping with Jewel, 2 L's. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I have videos on YouTube. So yeah, send me a message. I love tapping and talking tapping. Did I
Brilliant.
mention tapping?
I love it. Okay, thank you so much, Jewel, for joining us.
Thank you.
That is it, folks. This has been Mel Finlater on Permission to Be Human, the podcast. And I am so glad that you have joined us here today and hope that you have taken away some tidbits that will help you go away, connect with your big, audacious dream, and make that massive impact in the world that you are dying to make. If you liked today's episode, please, please, please like it, share it. Think of one person. Think of one person that you think would also like it and send it on over to them. Let's get this out there and more moms feeling like themselves, inspired, dreaming big, and out there being them. Please do head on over to find me on Facebook with Permission to Be Human or Instagram, or you can even pop me an email and say hello at permissiontobehumanalways@gmail.com. Say hello and let me know that you listened. What did you like about it? I would love to hear. If you didn't like it, I don't really want to know. Just kidding. You can share that if you want. I would love to know, however, who you are. Let's connect. Let's find out what you want more of. I want to hear from you, and I want to make it what would be useful to you. As always, remember that you have permission to dream big, permission to feel big, and permission to be you. You have complete and full permission to be human. For real, you do.